Wonderful. Whenever you're ready, Margie, you're welcome to introduce yourself. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Margie Thomson. I have been a gender therapist for about the last 10 years, really focusing my private practice on that demographics and on people, humans. I am really excited to be here to talk about gender affirming mental health care. I have a passion that keeps growing every day for this. And I, think that every therapist should be gender affirming and should dive in deeper and get uncomfortable and learn more and educate themselves too. So anyway, just to get a sense before we jump into things, how many of you here are like therapists, service providers, people who are working with direct service or counseling or any of that? Can we just even do the little reaction, hands up, if I can't see you? Okay, looks like a good amount are. Yeah, so I'll really be directing this pretty much toward people who are working directly with others who may be gender expansive. And also just working with your regular other clientele that may be building up trust to be able to finally disclose something to you. So I guess we can jump right in. Yeah. So Meryl, should I start sharing my screen?
Yeah, go for it, Margie. Thank you so much. And as we go through Margie's presentation, if anyone has questions, you're welcome to either unmute yourself and ask those or write your questions in the chat and we'll have Margie answer those. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Let me put this into a view. There we go. Let's see if it works. Yay, it did. So once again, welcome. I'm super excited to see people who showed up and excited to talk to people who are also in the field or have an interest in becoming more affirming. Just a little bit about me. I am a mom. I have 3 kids and 2 stepchildren that are wonderful. I feel pretty blessed in that role. I also am the 8th of 8. So the picture at the bottom, I'm a huge family. I had to be the first to come out to all those people actually a long time ago. I am married to my wife for the past 8 years since it's been legal, finally. I'm pretty sporty. So I put the picture of the paddleboard up there just because I'm sporty. And so that's about me as a person. And then I guess professionally, I've been counseling for about 25 years, most of that at the university, and since 2014 in private practice. Way back in the beginning, I had a student come to me who was transsexual, is how she identified, and wanted me to help her to transition. And at that point, I called about 26 therapists on our list in Juneau and found one therapist who had worked with one person years earlier. And so I realized that I didn't quite have a mentor or someone to kind of help me through the ropes to be a little bit more competent. And bless her soul, she's like, okay, here's the WPATH standards of care. This tells you your role as a psychotherapist. This is this, I will need a letter for this. She really helped me begin my learning curve. And from that point on, I went to several conferences in gender diversity and gender odyssey and have taken lots of different classes and continuing ed. And I'll give you a bunch of resources of that. And with all that being said, the more I learn, the more I don't know. The more I learn, things are always changing and people are changing and people identify in different ways. And the whole community is growing and learning. And so I feel like, you'll never get like a queer badge of, you made it, because there is not such a thing. So I guess I want to just encourage people to dig in a little bit and find your comfort zone, and also really think about the stories and the lived experience of your clients or the people you're working with. Let me see if I can. Oops. Oh, doesn't look like I can move it. Let's see if I can shift it this way. Okay, Meryl, I might have to have you. Since I'm do my blanks, split my screen, if that works for you.
Yeah.
Try again.
Do you want me to start sharing your
Yeah.
slides? Okay. Yeah, if you want to.
I think.
Oh, go ahead, Margie.
No, that's okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's helping me. So maybe if you want to share, starting from here, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Cool.
And as you're flipping it, I'll just let you know that the goal of today is to just kind of discuss some gender affirming clinical competence. And, I have a whole list of different approaches to working with gender diversity. It's way too small to be able to put up there, but it can help you gauge yourself. It can help you understand whether you are, a novice, or if you're friendly or affirming or competent. And like I said in the beginning, I really feel like every therapist needs to just dig in a little bit and become more gender affirming. And why is this important? I think next slide, Meryl. Oops. It's important because, well, it's a marginalized community. People are access to healthcare has been really non-existent for some, horror stories for others, and it's been really, really difficult. Some of the stories that I've heard from people who have tried to access healthcare or mental health care, or the questions they've been asked or probed, have really been caused more dysphoria and more discomfort. 45% of LGBTQ youth in Alaska seriously considered suicide in the past. So I really feel like, being gender affirming is also a suicide prevention mode. It data indicates, I don't like reading slides, but data indicates that 82% of transgender individuals have considered killing themselves, and 40% have attempted suicide, with suicidality highest among transgender youth. And that is a reality, and that has fueled my passion in wanting to be affirming and helping to educate parents and helping partners to understand things. And unfortunately, I've lost 3 clients to suicide who have been transgender. And that has been life-changing for me, and super, super, super sad. And so we'll go from here, but I just wanted to let you know that I think it's a suicide prevention thing. Meryl, let me see if you can click the link just to look a little bit at Alaska and the risks. This is just fresh off the press, just came out in January. It's the 2022 national survey from the Trevor Foundation. And the Trevor Project is a really, really wonderful one that helps suicide prevention, really focuses on LGBTQ, helps with a lot of bullying aspects, all sorts of things. And Meryl, if you scroll down just a little bit, they have some great statistics just specifically on youth and LGBTQ. And it later down in the report, it ferrets down to some transgender specific things. But I think the information in this is ammunition for us and information for us to really recognize the seriousness of this and our role, our positions as direct service providers or therapists or counselors is super important, and super important in helping people to see that there is some hope, and there might be hope, and to help facilitate them seeing other people who have made it or who have gotten to different stages. And so anyway, we can jump back to the slide, but I really think our state is like number one in the nation of all kinds of stuff, and we do not need to keep being there up at the top for some of these hard things. And so now I just want to just pose a few questions for self-reflection, because I feel like that is super important for us to look at ourselves, just like as therapists and counselors and case managers. You have to know your own stuff. You have to know how you got to the place, or even how you got into the profession or the helping field that you're in. Trying to figure out, like, how did I know about my own gender identity or sexuality? How did I come to those conclusions? Did I ever imagine that there was anything different than what was told to me or what was expected of me? Where did you learn about things? Was it at church? Was it friends? Was it TV shows or movies? This is a hands up question. Did any of you have any formal training in grad school or continuing ed on gender or LGBTQ minorities? Hard to tell if anybody puts their thumb up. I can't tell, but I'll keep talking. I think in other circuits, when I've talked to people, there's not been very much at all. Nope, not from the teachers, as I see in the chat. Nope, not that I remember.
Hi, Margie. Just to be engaging with you, no, I have not. There was very, very little training, very little discussion, and I, during my time pursuing my PhD in clinical psychology, very little. And so I felt it was important to be here today to listen in. So I just wanted to show my face and say that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you a lot. I think some of the education training now is trying to maybe have a course on it, or maybe incorporate it into other things, but it's really never been a priority for education. It's never been encouraged. And so it is going to take some self-initiative if you're choosing to focus more with these folks and to be more gender affirming, is to take some classes, to do a CEU there. And do you refer out if you do get someone? I know for myself that all my training and focus and extracurricular, everything has been focused in this area. So when I get someone who has an eating disorder, I may make sure they're okay with their gender identity and those types of things, but I really make sure that I refer out. And so that's just some of the things just to think about for yourself, and also for what you want for the future, for your practice, for your agency, for your personal life. So yeah, we'll come back to a little self-reflection in a little bit. But Meryl, we can look at the next one. This is just really basic because I'm not sure where the audience is at. This is a tool that I use with families sometimes, or people, just to find out what they're feeling about their own gender identity. And there used to be a gender bread, and it was a gingerbread, but it was very binary, just maleness, femaleness. And so this gender unicorn, I'll start with the gender identity, the rainbow up in the think bubble. That's how people think about themselves. That's how they look at themselves. That's how they see who they are. Sometimes that matches up with the biology, the sex assigned at birth. You can see the symbol down there near the legs. Sometimes it matches up. A lot of times it might, and a lot of times it might not. You know, when it does match up, for example, myself, I was assigned female at birth, and I identify as female most of the time. And so my identity is cisgender. Cis means the same. So I'm cisgender. The way expression, the little green dots on the outside, the way people express themselves might, you know, be more androgynous, which is, you know, maybe neither maleness nor femaleness. They may feel like, I know when I get dressed up for a wedding or something, sometimes I feel like an imposter because I'm not real girly. On the other hand, I like that feminine part of me, and I wear dresses and I wear heels, which I try not to trip on, but yeah, so expression, the way people express on the outside, often is how they identify up there. And then the heart is who you're romantically or sexually attracted to. So there's just a whole lot that goes into it. But I think it's important to know that, like, what you're assigned at birth may be different than how you identify, how you think of yourself. And that even may be different than the way you present to the world or show on the outside. Yeah, so anyway, that's a little brief on gender unicorn. The next slide is just a non-binary umbrella, and people who are non-binary are individuals, and I don't like to speak for people because a lot of people have their own definition, but it's kind of an umbrella term for people who don't feel either maleness or femaleness all the time. Or, you know, they may feel more fluid, like gender fluid, one who embraces the fluidity of their identity, or they may feel neither, you know, androgynous. And I think, you know, sometimes our world is starting to understand, like, assigned male at birth, you know, transitioning to female, or assigned female at birth, transitioning to male. Yet they're not really understanding people who don't fit in those categories and people who are non-binary. And I think that that's a really big group of people, and a lot to learn from people, you know, finding out what it means to them and how they identify and those types of things. I think the next one. So gender dysphoria and gender incongruence. I didn't want to get too technical here, but we all know the DSM-5, and we all have the criteria. Here's my little book right here that we have to, you know, go by. And I guess I wanted to say that, you know, persistent and insistent and consistent over 6 months is important. I think that, you know, we just mentioned cisgender identifies with assigned at birth, and transgender or gender non-binary, gender expansive, don't necessarily identify with the gender assigned at birth. People really start to understand their gender identity. They're generally about 3 different ages that they do this, and preschool age, 3 to 4, is one age where, you know, kids might say to mom, "I'm a boy," and mom might try to put you in a dress, and they're like, "No, I'm a boy," you know. And some parents go with that and just let the child express themselves, and some parents, that can cause some conflict in the family because they don't know that, and then that makes the child sometimes can absorb those messages and go, "Uh-oh, I better not, you know, put a dress on anymore, or I better not wear that anymore, I'll get mad, mom and dad might get mad." And so sometimes it's hidden away. Puberty is another common time for people to understand that they may not be cisgender. When puberty happens and you start to grow facial hair, or you start to grow breasts, or you have your monthly period, it can be really, really disconcerting. It can really cause a lot of distress. And it's just, yeah, it can be like, it's betraying me, or I can't hide anymore with that. And so that's a age that often comes up. And then when people leave home, their home of origin, whether it's just college or to live on their own or trade school, sometimes getting out of your hometown or out of even just your actual house, all of a sudden you might see possibilities, or you might feel the freedom of being able to be a little bit more what you like, or more who you are, sorry. And, I think, Carrie, I know you work at UAS, and when I worked back there, there were several students that would come in and say, oh my gosh, I think this is who I am, or I think this is how I identify. And like, I don't know how I'm going to go home at Christmas break and talk to my parents, or do I have to talk to my parents when I get home, or what do I do with this now that I'm here? And so I think just the possibilities happen. But even though those are the three main times that people can understand that they are not cisgender, it's not the only time. We have, in my practice, I've seen people from 3 to 69, who have just discovered this, or have just realized this about themselves, and realized they needed to do something for themselves to find some peace, and to be authentic, and to be able to live. So anyway, I'm talking blah blah blah. But it's, there's a lot of clinical things that go into diagnosing it. But on the other hand, I think that I don't know. I don't want to not pathologize it. I don't want to stick it in a box. Yet sometimes it's super important for people to get that diagnosis, to get that gender dysphoria, that F64.1, to be able to access hormone therapy, or to be able to access top surgery, or vocalization surgery. The medical and insurance companies really need to see those certain categories and certain things. And sometimes it feels like hoops to get through. But sometimes, I don't know, we can also break down some of those hoops. But it is something to ask some good questions about. And I guess we can go to the next one. But first of all, does anybody have some questions more on gender dysphoria or gender incongruence? And I did see something in the discussion that said, I think of my late 60s as my second puberty.
Yeah, that was me.
Thank you, Jane. And you've actually been wonderful in, sharing your journey with some of the people through the Juno Empire every other week. Is that right?
Thanks. Yes. Yeah. The responses have been extraordinary.
Wow. Quite brave. Thank you for doing that, because I do feel like that's opened up the discussion more in our community. And
it has. People have come up to me all the time to say, hey, we were talking about your column the other day at a party, and it's just, words going around. So it's that's the payoff. You know that, Margie. You're hearing that response.
Yeah, thank you. There are also some really good, as I'm looking at dysphoria, really good guidelines for counselors, for therapists, for clinicians to diagnose. The WPATH standards, standards of care for the health of transsexual, transgender, and gender nonconforming people through WPATH this is like the Bible. This is what tells me my role as a therapist with someone who is gender expansive. It tells me what I need to write in a letter if someone requests some hormone therapy. It really is, the standard to go by. And luckily, they've just recently updated it with some more up-to-date terminology, as well as removing certain things like you used to need to have a letter, to get hormone therapy. And now you don't have to. I know in Juneau, most of the physicians and pediatricians still do like to have a letter from a therapist to know that this person's talked to somebody and, they've thought this through and this is a good decision. But yet I also know if you don't want to do that, that Planned Parenthood has easy access and affordable as well. So WPATH is changing and becoming more accessible. But I want, people to know that that's a super good reference. And so the next slide, so some people who do feel like they have gender dysphoria or gender incongruence may decide to transition, may decide to do some things that might help them to reduce the symptoms of dysphoria or reduce some of the struggles. And this is not an event. It's not a step-by-step process. It's like over the lifespan. Some people may transition socially, but not do anything medically or not feel like they need to do anything legally. There are other people that feel like every time I see my name or my sex assigned at birth on that hospital band, it makes me, I really need to go change my name. So some people do the legal, change your gender marker through Department of Motor Vehicles or change their name legally on birth certificates or passports. Some people may socially come out and transition. Some people have all of a sudden a brand new Facebook page, and on that page they'll accept the people who are accepting to them and who they are out to or who they feel affirm them and support them. Some people may change just their hairstyle or the use of pronouns. Pronouns, I don't even think I put that in here, but just respecting someone and using the pronouns that they use or the name that they use is huge. Sometimes I'll talk with parents, and parents go through their own grieving process when they understand this about their child, and it shifts their identity too. Like, I used to be the mom of 3 daughters, and now I'm the mom of two daughters and a son. It's there's some grieving in there. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train. But the pronouns, sometimes I'll ask the parents, I'll say, try for a weekend. Let's see how it goes. Just for a weekend, just try calling your child the name they want and the pronouns that they're asking for. Just see how it goes. And I'll tell you, of my little minuscule experiment, 100 times out of 100, the parents are like, whoa, my kid came out of their room. They joined us in the living room. Or I saw my kid smile. They're not putting their bristly things out at me anymore. So it really makes a difference. And so I won't beat that one, but and all the legislation coming up, we'll talk about that in a minute. But some people may decide to transition medically. And for some, that might be having hormone replacement therapy, taking feminizing hormones or masculinizing hormones. Some might want to have some surgery, whether it's masculine, top surgery. Thank you. Or orchiectomy. There are just several different surgeries that some people choose to, and some people choose not to have any surgeries because that might not, that part of their body or that part may not be dysphoric. That's not what's causing distress for them. And so, but as therapists, and as case managers and as helping profession, people who do choose to do that do need to have letters from people with initials like us, which sometimes can be really complex. I think Oregon State Health, OHSU, has like a 25-page questionnaire, which is super intense and actually felt really like redundant and invasive, but they cover everything. They have lots of great healthcare, very affirming there. And so it's worth filling out this big, huge paper to be able to get results that you want, or to have a surgeon that's skilled to work with you. So those things are needed. And there's also, for people who don't have insurance or don't have a therapist or don't have a place to go, there's the Gallup Project, which is therapists in all these different states who have committed to writing at least one free letter a month. And people contact me through that list for Alaska and, just say, I really need a second letter for this, or I need a letter for that. And so that's something to consider if you're going more into gender affirming therapy, to consider getting on that list and reading what the commitment for that is. Does anybody have some questions, or does anybody want to share even just a little bit about their experience with transition? I don't want to put anyone on the spot who may be here, but also give you an opportunity if you'd like to.
Margie, I just have a question. This is Tina Woods. Are you open to, if one of our staff is working with somebody and could really use consultation with someone like you, are you open, if I were to give your name, for them to reach out to you? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been doing consultation and some supervision as well. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Does anybody want to share anything little about their experience at all? Or?
Hi, Margie. This is Carrie. I just kind of wanted to share just a little bit about my experience in grad school, actually kind of going back to that, but it also relates to transition as well too. I had the privilege of going to grad school with someone who was transitioning. And so it provided a different type of conversation for my cohort, especially as this person went through these changes, both physically, legally, and socially. And so I think that that really informed a lot of my experience. And I always have appreciated this person's willingness to share and be open about their experience, and that the university made a safe place for them to do that. It wasn't necessarily that we had a specific class. It was just that there was space given for this person should they want to choose. And so I really love that this person is now a licensed professional counselor in Oregon and is doing their private practice and giving space for other individuals who are have gone through transition as well, and are counselors. And so if anybody is interested in that resource, happy to send it out, just because it's a beautiful, beautiful story, but also one that they're now impacting the community in an extremely positive way, and a great resource.
That's awesome. Yeah, and if you want to put it in the chat, people can copy it if you have it.
Yeah, I do. I'll
put that. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Carrie. Yeah. Anybody else want to share anything?
This is Meryl. I think I just wanted to really quickly share. It's interesting, the question about consultation came up. So I am a non-binary person and I'm getting top surgery, and my provider went to Margie for consultation to help her feel ready and comfortable to write my letter. And that was a really helpful thing. And I think the other thing that I would just let people know that felt helpful for me in that process, because it was hard to ask for a letter, and it feels hard to not be able to make that decision for yourself about your body. Feels weird to have to go get permission from someone else to do that. And I think something that my provider did that really helped in the end that process feel okay for me is just really assuring me that she wasn't going to say no. Like, I had a lot of fear that she was going to not write my letter. And I think just really providing assurance that like she was going to write it and that she was trying to be helpful and wanted to do it with me and wanted to be there with me through the process and not be another thing in the way, because there has been countless things in the way. So I think I would just offer that to folks who are maybe considering writing these letters, is just that reassurance can be helpful, because I think there can be a lot of fear that people are going to say no and make it even more difficult. And so that was something that was a couple of things that were helpful to me in that process of getting a letter.
That's awesome. Thank you for putting yourself out there and sharing that. Yeah. So the next slide is about challenges, and I think we've already touched on some of them, but wow, the challenges that people who are gender expansive experience are huge. We already touched on the suicidality, depression, anxiety. If once you've discovered this or learned the words about yourself, if you had to stay hidden or had to stay for safety reasons or for whatever reasons, like that causes a lot inside, that causes a lot. Anxiety. Kids have shared with me that they have this running narrative in their head all day long at school going, are they looking at me? Can they tell I'm a boy? Do they, which bathroom should I use? I don't know which one I have to pick. Oh no, just all these things that are just worries. And, when you are using the pronouns of this person or using the name they want, it turns the volume down of that a bit in their head. It just, that affirmingness really does help to reduce some of that anxiety and some of the things. Basic needs, we talked about restrooms. Luckily, there is a wonderful new guide that Ty and Meryl have put out that is in the resources at the end. It's a resource for trans students in the Juneau School District. And there's a high school edition and a middle school edition. And it talks about who's safe to talk to, which bathrooms can I use, what are the rules, what are the laws that are protecting me in this school. And I think those things, this is super valuable. And I think those things are really, really important, especially as things are popping up in the legislature or rights are being taken away. This morning I found out that there are 409 from the ACLU. There are 409 bills that have been filed that are anti-LGBTQ or trans bills. And even in our own state, luckily, the education bill doesn't look like it's going to pass, but that doesn't mean we should let our guard down. I'm wearing my shirt today. These are awesome shirts with our state that talk about protect, believe, love trans kids. I feel that we all need to not just be allies, but we need to be advocates. We need to get out of our comfort zone and speak up if we are given any kind of platform or any kind of opportunity to advocate. Discrimination, employment, healthcare. I heard housing. I heard a story this morning how the landlord just continued every month to keep upping the rent of this transgender individual, and it wasn't happening to the neighbors. And that's a bit scary if you feel like you're being targeted, and sometimes you are. In general, I really feel like Juneau has been a safe place. Alaska's been a pretty safe place to come out and to be supported in your employment or in your housing. But I think that historically, as well as potentially discrimination and things can happen. family situation, I guess I want to mention that, sometimes people are brought up in a pretty religious environment, and there's a big conflict at home for acceptance of their gender expansion or their transgenderness or their LGBTQ understanding of themselves. Some parents are I love getting those phone calls from these parents that say, hi, my daughter just said she's a boy and I'm supposed to call you. Dr. Amy said to call you, because I know that parent is at least willing and open a bit to learn and to want to support their kid. And some parents have left their church or have left their community to be able to embrace and support their child. So those are all things that have to be really mindful of as you're working with people. And I think, Meryl, next one, just some practical suggestions. I think it's really important to know your own identity. We kind of skimmed the self-reflection, but yeah, how did you come up with this? Or what expectations were put on you? And did that fit? I think dropping assumptions. Everybody uses different terms or different words to describe themselves. And so use the words that they use. Don't try to put a more politicized thing. Do homework. It's not, thank goodness for that very first person that was so patient with me, that educated me on transgender and transgender laws, all these things. But a client or a person shouldn't need to educate you on everything. You got to do your own homework. You really do have to dig in deep and read about things like that. Yeah, so just try not to expect your client to educate you on that. They can educate you on their experience, which is super important because that's so unique and individual. Look at your intake forms. How can they be altered a bit so they're not as binary, or so they're more inclusive of a lot of people and a lot of identities? Displaying awareness and openness, even pronouns in the signature line, there's some controversy about that, but I feel like that at least is a sign that I'm aware of pronouns. These are the ones I use. I will respectfully use yours. At the university, we used to teach a safe zone course for staff and faculty. And if they took this course, they got this little rainbow triangle to put at their door. And that was like a visible sign for people that they were accepting. And they were, sometimes students didn't know what it meant, but they thought, I think that's a friendly sign. I think they've done something. So if there's any visible things that you feel comfortable keeping in your waiting room, that those clues are picked up by people. I already talked a little bit about family dynamics, and advocate and be an ally, and get uncomfortable. People with marginalized identities, they don't have the chance to be comfortable very often, and so take our discomfort and learn and grow. And I feel like I'm preaching right now. There's Pastor Faith in there. I'm preaching it. So anyway, there's a ton more practical suggestions, but these are just some to think about. And so now I guess I want you to think about, in your own practice, your agency, your work, what's maybe one thing you can do to help affirm, or one change you can make to help affirm the experiences for LGBTQIA folks, and especially since this topic is about transgender and gender expansive. And I guess I like accountability. Like if you want to write it down on a piece of paper, you can check with yourself. But I'd also love to hear if anybody can think of one thing that they can do in their own location right now, that can help.
You know, Margie, if I could say something here, the one thing that surprised me, I've been writing the coming out column for more than a year now. And the one thing that has surprised me is that the only negative criticism I've received directly, somebody talking directly to me, came from another trans person here who seemed to think I wasn't queer enough. You know, which really surprised me that you know, we talk about being individuals and having respect for the individual. And I've always made clear that the column was in the column, I was telling my story and my story alone, and wasn't a spokesman for the trans community, right? So that surprised me. I think it's something we need to keep an eye out for, that, you know, divisions within our community, you know, we're all queer enough.
Yes.
I mean, even the ones that don't know it.
Yes, I have this book. Yes, you are trans enough.
Right.
Jane, I'm sorry that happened to you. And
well, that's okay. It's an education, right?
Yeah, and we're all human, and you're right. Sometimes there is policing, or there is different criteria in communities. But for those of you therapists or case managers, any one thing that you can think of that you could do in your place of work or living.
I work at GME, and I guess I'll just say, like, our client, like, face sheets are pretty not a lot of options for wiggle room in terms of like gender, or how people identify, or really like letting it show who they are. And a lot of times the picture like on their face sheet isn't, I don't know, I guess I'll just like encourage them, like, oh, you can update that picture if like it doesn't reflect like who you are now, or put in the message board like for people to see their preferred pronouns is
That's awesome.
something.
Yeah, no, that's super awesome. You know, and it might have to be changing the policy, but I love that you're encouraging the individual and empowering them to like, okay, put it out there. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Elise. I'm not a therapist or a case manager, but I've been working with youth in Alaska for the last 7 years. And currently I'm working as a prevention specialist, and we're actually really looking at, we've been doing some LGBTQ plus support groups for youth in the high schools. But I actually had a young adult person come to me in the community and say, you know, there is no support right now here in Sitka for individuals who are like that in between, you know, young adult age, so 18 to 24 demographic, don't receive a lot of support in the community in general, and then especially around the LGBTQ plus population. So we're looking at trying to start a little group here, and I would love any words of wisdom or support from any of the therapists in the group, or anyone else, any professionals in the group who have advice for like like things to consider when we're moving into like creating that space. So I'll put my email in the box, and then if you have any little nuggets you want to send my way, that would be awesome. And it's cool because we're really involving the youth voice. This young person who has come to us identifies as non-binary, and I noticed that I asked them, I make a point to try to ask youth initially about, you know, what are your preferred pronouns? What's the preferred way that you identify? How do you want to be known in this space? Because I have seen with youth that sometimes that's fluid, and as they change and move through like, you know, different phases of their life and development, that might change too. Like they might change and then change back, and that's okay. So I'd really just try to affirm that It's okay that you're fluid, and how do you want to be known today? And kind of like maybe checking back. I kind of thought about maybe for the support groups, like kind of at the beginning of every session that we do, or every drop-in time that the youth are coming and hanging out, just doing a little check-in to say, like, does anyone want to update their pronoun today? Or just kind of normalizing that fluidity, I guess.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. I like how you said, like, what are your pronouns today? You know, yeah, I love that. And I just saw the time, so I think, Meryl, go to the next slide. Yeah, I just want to mention some resources. This book, The Clinician's Guide to Gender Affirming Care, is an awesome book that I probably consult once a week. It just has deeper questions to ask your client and deeper questions to ask yourself. It really goes into, it talks about groups, it talks about individuals, it talks about families and partners. So that's a wonderful book. There's also another book, The Guidelines for Primary and Gender Affirming Care. And so anyway, I think this slideshow will be available so you can get the links afterwards. The WPATH, like I said, that's the standards of care that we abide by and that are super important. Next slide, I think we have some resources. Oh, this is just a different sheet that I couldn't get on there and you can't see it, but that is the sheet that talks about different trying to like assess yourself, like, what is my approach to gender? Am I friendly? Am I affirming? Am I competent? You know, and it gives a criteria, and I'm more than willing to send that out, just so you can do your own self-assessment. And then the next slide is just about some local resources. I mentioned the Center of Excellence for Transgender Health is amazing. A lot of these have free trainings. There's a like more of an institutional training up there, not institutional, but like a little summit training symposium above. And those experts are amazing in their field. I've heard them speak, and I'm signing up for their courses because I feel like there's so much to learn. Yeah, so please, I think there might be one more slide or maybe not. Yeah, please, as far as the local things, I just want to mention to you, and I might have Eli jump on in a second. I'm gathering interest for therapists who are looking for case consultation, with the focus being LGBTQ. And we're going to have a facilitator from outside who will be paid to work with us. And so I am excited about that. So I'd really love any people who are interested in that. We also are planning a really big conference in May 15th to 17th, 2024, Affirming Our Identities. And I'm going to have, with my hour, a panel discussion of several people in the community and Southeast that are wanting to share their stories. I think there'll be lots of other identities represented. It's going to be really exciting, and I could use help with that. And then also, I was just aware of the Queer Infinity. And Eli, if you'll jump on, if you're still with us, and just mention what that is going to be, what that space is for local therapists.
Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you. Such a wonderful presentation. I'm Eli, they, them pronouns. I own a counseling business called Thriving Within, and I hold a queer affinity group meeting for queer providers. And we're going to meet twice a month. Our next meeting would be this Thursday at 6 p.m. And we meet the first Monday, third Thursday at 6, and first Monday at 10. For any queer provider, all the way from direct service up to whatever level. And it's just networking, support, connection. Oftentimes we deal with different or the same issues as our clients, and it's great to talk to somebody and have that support. So I'll put my email in the chat if you want the links here, and please share.
So any more questions? Be like a couple minutes. I'm so thankful that this many people showed up. It gives it, yeah, makes my heart happy for our state, our community, and for all the people that are seeking services. Okay. I think that's it.
That's
for
great.
me.